round two. We're going to go into our keynote panel now.
It's a tough act to follow, Shelley.
Oh man, Dr. Wilson has a plethora of information and expertise, and it's always really exciting and a pleasure to have the opportunity to have this conversation with him. All right. So as we get, set up for our next conversation, I'm really excited to, be talking about consumers and EVs. And so we have a wonderful panel of experts today. We have Chris Heron, who is representing the Southeast. We have Stephanie Bradford, who is representing the Pacific Northwest, and Dr. Howard Robinson, who is representing the South. And so the idea for this conversation today is to really get a better understanding of the needs, the experiences of EV drivers and enthusiasts beyond the early adopter. So really hearing from their perspective. As we talked in the previous panel, we want to center the voices of our different partners and our experts. And so we really want to hear from this audience of experts on what we can do to increase awareness about EVs and clean transportation, multimodal e-mobility, as well as what we can do to accelerate this technology for all communities.
All right.
I'd like to go ahead and
we're gonna jump right in, because there's no better experts than people who've been living with electric vehicles. And we're going to sort of scatter the questions around here, so don't feel like you all need to jump in on every question. But I'm going to, let's see, my first question is just tell us a little bit about how you came to own an electric vehicle, how long you've been driving it, what that process was like. And I'm going to pick on Stephanie first, because you're closest to me.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for some of you. My name is Stephanie. I live in Portland, Oregon. I have been driving my current EV for about 4 months now. I decided to get an electric vehicle because I was looking overall in all areas of my life to reduce my carbon footprint, and getting an electric vehicle was it was a big part of moving towards sustainability. So I got I think about 4 months ago. And so far it has been wonderful. I have home charging, which really, it gave me a lot of comfort, but the access in my community is stellar. And so I'm not reliant on home charging as much as I thought I would be going into it, but it's been an amazing experience so far. Definitely recommend. And far less challenges than I thought going into it, but it's been good so far.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the process of picking out the vehicle and major factors in your decision making, and kind of how that process ran? I think it's fair to name the vehicle if you're open to that.
Okay, yeah.
Tell us what you settled on.
So range was the biggest factor, aside from price, that I was considering. So I got a Tesla Model Y because for the price, it gave me the longest range. So I believe it has an EPA estimated 328 range, which is far more than I have used in any given week. But I think just switching over to an electric vehicle, I thought that I needed that extra. I'm sure I could have looked at gas records, like how frequently I was filling up my tank. I had a hybrid before that, and I never used that much, but I wanted something that was sizable, that was safe. I'm a mother, so I wanted room to use to be able to accommodate my lifestyle. So we go hiking and camping and biking, and I needed a vehicle that would get me around and about in the city, but also allow me to continue to do all the outdoor activities that I like. So I wanted something that was all-wheel drive, something that had good range, and the Tesla was the access to the supercharging network was a factor, but not the most important factor. So, but it definitely did play a role. So I'm super excited that the network is going to be opened up for everyone, regardless of the vehicle that they, well, supposedly, but regardless of the vehicle that they get. So access to the charging infrastructure was a big one.
Okay, and Chris, let me ask you sort of the same question. Like, what are you driving, and how did you come to own it, and what was that process like?
Well, my family, we actually are on our second EV now, and we have 2 of them basically. I think approximately 3 years ago is when we first got serious about finding something that would work for our family. We started out with a used Nissan Leaf, and as we're going through the process of trying to figure out what worked for us, it was mainly for my benefit. I work approximately 15 miles from my house, so it was easy to look at a used Nissan Leaf, and we acquired that back in 2018. It's really been phenomenal as, a daily driver vehicle. And the charging infrastructure, as much as I thought it would be challenging for where I have to go and what I have to do on a daily basis, it works very well. So we didn't have any issues there. The challenge really become, and in the EV space, you have to look at what works for you viability wise in everything you do. So you have charging infrastructure, charging at home. You have range is something you have to consider. So my wife works approximately 40 minutes or 40 miles from the house, which kind of changed the dynamic of utilizing the Leaf to acquire, to get her back and forth from work. So we started looking last year into a used Tesla, and clearly I'm all about the used car market. I know a lot of folks here do new. I've always done used cars, and I just had such a good experience with the Nissan Leaf. I went and got a used Tesla Model S 2013, and it's been phenomenal. It definitely gets the thought of range accomplished in a daily basis. Sometimes we don't charge every day, sometimes we charge every other day. So that was the big benefit to move into something different after assessing our needs. Definitely at this point, I am looking to get a third.
So I want to just level set for the audience, because it will be helpful to know how long each of you have been driving an electric vehicle. For some of the audience who are obviously are not familiar with the technology, or you're just curious how long you have moved away from the ICE vehicles. So Dr. Robinson, will you let us know like how long you've been driving an EV, and then Chris, and then Stephanie, and then we'll go into our next question. You're muted, Dr. Robinson.
Yeah, I knew that. I've been driving an EV for about 3 months.
Okay, so you're new to the EV conversation, but glad to have you in the space. What about you, Chris and Stephanie? How long have you been driving electric vehicles?
I've been driving for 3 years now.
Okay.
And for me, for almost 5 months.
Okay, got it. So we got a nice little range going here. So my question is like, when you decided to get an electric vehicle, move away from fossil fuel, How did your family, friends, or your network react to this information? And then can you talk a little bit about the types of resources that you utilize to inform yourself, to educate yourself about EVs and the different types that would be available based on what your needs were? And let's start with you, Dr. Robinson.
Well, for me, I think it was an evolution. So I thought about actually I thought about a Chevy Volt, and they stopped making Chevy Volts. And then, but you know, and again, there's the environmental issues that are underlying, you know, my decision. Geopolitical issues. I just, you know, and I just hate buying gas. I hated the concept of just going to the gas station and buying gas with the sort of implications around the acquisition of gas and oil throughout the world. And then so my environmental issues, just the thought of having to go to the gas station and being held hostage to sort of the fluctuating prices of gasoline. And I wanted to buy a vehicle that really I looked at buying just really any getting in at the low end of the EV spectrum, and realized that some of the EVs that are more popular are not as expensive as I initially thought. Though, you know, those are some of the factors that I sort of brought to bear as I made the decision.
So, as a follow up to, you know, the reaction that your friends, family.
Oh yeah. Let me speak to that a little bit. My friend and family network. Actually, everybody was curious. You know, people have heard a little bit about EVs, and really, I'm surprised at how little they actually know. People, like really well-educated folks, and otherwise pretty worldly folks, know very little about EVs, and so they were very curious. You know, but everybody has the same trepidation in terms of charging. You know, and being able to charge, you know, when you're away from the home, and then they don't really understand the charging network, you know, that well. And so, but then it's so interesting to see how many people are influenced by having actually driven in a EV. I think anybody who has one, you know, has driven friends and family around, you know, because they want that experience. They want to understand what it's like, and almost to a person, everybody I've given a ride to like wants to buy an EV. You know, the acceleration, you know, and other features. They you know, it becomes more tangible and real to them. So initially there was a little trepidation. Some people, like I had a friend who was exposed to EVs a long time ago. And so, you know, and had a sort of an outmoded perception of what they are. And so when I took him for a ride in mine, he was like, "Oh, this is, you know," because he thought that they lacked power and they lacked acceleration, and so once he saw that was an integral part of their self, you know, what is attractive about them, he was changed. So people have been curious. But a little information they do have, you know, once they're exposed and they have a tangible feel, it's made a difference.
What would you say? I think so. All three of you are members of EVHybridNoire, which is the nation's largest network of diverse EV drivers and enthusiasts. It's a membership organization. And so, can you just talk a little bit about, you know, how being part of that membership, you know, helped you as you were considering transitioning to getting an EV, or even after and beyond, in terms of supporting that transition? And that Kristen or Stephanie, you can take that question.
Well, in my early searchings, I wasn't a part of the group back then. So coming across information was hard, and I had no one around me that actually had an EV, friend or family. So being a part of this group now and seeing how much of us actually have EVs has definitely changed my perspective about the whole thing. Because for me, it was really a trial and to see, would this even work? And then when you come on this network of so many people doing it every day, it just instills that confidence to make you want to go forward and really see that this technology is, you know, definitely forthcoming as we move into the next decade, right? So I think the information that we've gotten just from communicating, you know, to one another on various things, going on the comments, looking at what people are saying, other experiences, you see that no matter what it is, there's an answer for you out there. You can reach out to the group and get answers you need, whether it's about buying a new EV, researching an issue you have with your current EV. All those things are very, very, very valuable, you know, a very valuable part of being this group. So, you know, definitely thankful for that.
And I'll just add into that. I joined the group prior to ordering my car, and so it was tremendously helpful to get resources, whether it's, I was doing a deep dive into YouTube, which is not my chosen, just watching a bunch of videos was not the way that I ever want to do research, but it was the only place that I really felt like there was information regarding specific questions I had. So finding EVHybridNoire was a game changer as far as like, connecting with people that not only look like me, but maybe have similar lifestyles and, you know, their day-to-day may be similar, and having that connection and resource was really helpful to get myself like over that hurdle of, okay, yeah, I can do this and I'm not going to end up stranded somewhere with my kid, you know, so it was really helpful. I
want to jump in with a question that came in from the audience. And the way it was phrased was, how do we address cultural barriers that prevent BIPOC and low-income folks from seeing themselves as users of EVs? I think I just heard one answer, but I'd love to hear it from you all. Maybe Chris, start with you.
Well, I'm probably someone that can relate to that a lot, because I started out with a used Leaf, and you know, if you live in a place where you start thinking of, you know, you can get around and you don't have to go very, very far, like, you know, you're not driving for work or something like that, I think it's a very viable option. And I don't want to specify a specific vehicle. There's lots of options out there. So, you know, let me just clarify that. But, you know, you start looking at used vehicles, you start looking at infrastructure, you start trying to get involved in a group that can give you access to information, will help some of these things. Now, from a top-down perspective of cultural barriers, how do we overcome that? I think, you know, probably part of it is, you know, trying to get to our inner city youth, the people who will be coming up in this new future. Like my kids, they're going to be a part of this new future, and they won't even understand some of the things I'll tell them about that happened in the 80s or 90s. You know, they'll just think, oh, Dad, you're crazy. So I think getting that information to our inner city people, to our low income people, is critical. And we have so many different avenues to get information out, you know, being on the street, setting up events, reaching out to people, whether via conferences or social media. You know, we have access, and how we derive to something that's going to work is going to be kind of a community effort. You know, we can't just say, this is what we're going to do and it will work for everyone. We all know that doesn't work. We have to kind of do a deep dive, look at the options, and say, how do we, you know, get the information to the people that need it? Because a lot of people, like I said, in my network of people I know, family and friends in general, just didn't know anything about EVs. Even when I went to the dealership that was selling the EV didn't know about EVs and asked me, where they put the gas, and that's just, they didn't know it was all electric. So you just got to say, hey, it is what it is, and I had to sit there and educate the guy about the car he was selling to me. So that's a big piece, because if I know nothing and I walk in and I say, hey, I hear about all these electric cars, I see you selling one, tell me about it. And the guy's like, well, I don't know where you put the gas. So anyways, the point is we need to be able to get this information out to the people who need it.
Can I speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely.
I think about, I was watching a movie the other day, and this, one of the characters smoking in the movie, right? And I was like, well, why is he smoking? I mean, what is that? What are they trying to communicate? Why is it necessary to have this man smoke in this movie? And so then of course about product placement, and people put different products in different shows as a way to promote those products. But part of that is normalizing certain behaviors in certain products. And so to have sitcoms or movies where electronic vehicles are part of the everyday experience of people, that's one way of familiarizing folks. And then you have these influencers. People, I work on a college campus, and some of these students have like thousands. There's a soccer player at my school that has that posted something like I had over 1 million likes. And so some of these young people are very influential in their social network, and to have them talking about or EVs, or being able to share their share experiences, I think it's important. I think what's happening with rental cars and the rental car companies making EVs a part of the fleet, thereby allowing people to test them out in that fashion. I know that's how that was part of the way I looked for a car too. Was renting cars. I want to rent this car, see what it's like, and when I had different opportunities. So I think there are a variety of ways that are not non-traditional ways. Even like the whole hip hop world. There was this thing. My wife and I had this discussion about dreadlocks some years ago. And I insisted to my wife. I said, these young people are really conscious, about the history of dreadlocks, and this is a demonstration of cultural consciousness. And she's like, they just sort of, these are just rap. They're just imitating rappers and other people they like. And I just refused to believe that. And so I started talking to young people, and found out that my wife was right. Right, there wasn't a really deep understanding of the culture and the context behind dreadlocks that I thought that there might have been. So people are influenced by pop culture in a lot of ways, music in a lot of ways, the media in a lot of ways, and to have the EV world become a more common and part of that mode of communication, I think, could make it more of a norm for people, particularly, target audience we're talking about.
Yeah. So far I'm hearing 3 universal truths. One is my wife is always right. The second is my teenagers will always think I'm crazy. And the third is if you're exposed to an EV by someone you trust, you're much more likely to buy one. So that's really helpful advice.
And one of the things that we always say, is that the messenger matters, Justin, just chiming in on that aspect of the conversation. And just want to plug a couple upcoming sessions for the conference in terms of panels. There's going to be a panel that looks at marketing EVs to diverse communities and what the best practices are. So I definitely would encourage participants to stay tuned for that session, as well as we talked about normalizing what EV adoption looks like in this conversation. There's going to be a panel as well around multimodal electrification, ride share, mass transit. So definitely those are other panels that you should really hone in and look to attend to learn more about what's happening in those industries. One of the questions that I had as I was listening to you, particularly Chris, talk, was just thinking about accelerating EV adoption. We were talking about diverse communities. So, we were talking at that time in the conversation about lower income and moderate income communities, as well as other diverse communities, and just thinking about EV adoption globally. I'm from the Caribbean, you're from the Caribbean as well, and so just thinking about like the role of electrification and EVs in the Caribbean. What are some of the things that you think we could do to expand EV adoption to more communities as well, not just domestically, but outside of the United States, and using the Caribbean as a case study?
I think Dr. Robinson mentioned social media, which has a strong hold in the islands too, because where I'm from, if I was to speak specifically about there, is definitely adopting EVs right now, and the government has put some effort behind it, and also the power companies. So the opportunities are coming in, but people are still not fully aware. And how do we get to them? I think social media is definitely, there are groups, different groups in the Caribbean for each island. And we can probably put information in these groups, or have our team go out and kind of, reach out to people in these groups to figure out who is doing the majority of the communication, and kind of get to them that way. I think that'd be a good start. As far as getting any deeper, it's going to be, it would require an effort because they're somewhere else physically, and we'd have to think, how do we do that? Maybe we can reach out to groups and get something like a conference like this going, where people kind of chime in and have like a live session, whether it's like a Facebook live session or something like that, to help, educate, because people would be interested. I'm 100% sure of that, because I saw a few EVs when I was in Jamaica back in June, and it was just a really good thing to see. So I think there's hope there with us helping, different islands out. And I have some friends that live in the DR, and one of them actually have a company where they are taking motorcycle frames and building, batteries and electric motors on it, and they're selling those, and those are big sellers in the DR right now, because they rely a lot on, mopeds and motorcycles there. So it's a great option to get around, and, you kind of do better with traffic having that. So, people like that, we can reach out to companies that are doing these things that nobody really knows about much, and we can help expand, their marketing process. So just little things like that as we think about it. Now, here back on the home front, when you think of low income, we kind of want to think of inner city and how we service that area. And part of it is infrastructure as we think about it. Part of it is, how do we reach these people? A lot of them are probably working 2 jobs, 3 jobs. I know my mom, she worked 2 jobs. My dad worked 2 jobs. So, when you think about that, it's hard to reach these people when they're always at work. So we have to kind of construct something around that, where we get messages to them to help them understand that you can save money having an EV, because that's my life story. Our gas bill for one car was about $400 a month going to work in Atlanta every day. And we brought that down to probably about $75 a month total. between the two cars. So it's a huge piece that a lot of people miss and don't quite understand, because we're so, oh my God, my electric bill is going to be so high. But we don't think about, oh well, you stop at the gas station twice, 3 times a week, and look at gas prices now. Forget about maintenance of the vehicle, because that's a whole nother discussion, right? But just from that front, I think there's lots of opportunity to show people that these things are possible.
So I would just add on that goes back to how do we get more people in low income, moderate income communities to move towards EV adoption. And I think it really needs to be said that cost is a huge motivator. And if we can somehow through educational campaigns or just, all of us sharing our stories, it really is a lot cheaper to own an electric vehicle than to drive a gas car. Like, I've only had mine for about 4 months, but my electric bill, I have a home charger, and my electric bill has been about $14 higher each month compared to, I think $14 in a month would get you, 3 gallons? That wouldn't get me very far. But it really is, I think, imperative for everyone to realize, how much are you going to be spending, especially with the rising prices in gas, owning a gas car versus owning an electric vehicle. And I think also moving away from this assumption that electric cars somehow means that you're paying $100,000 for a car. Like, there are, as we've seen, we all own different electric vehicles. There's a ton of different ones in all different price ranges. And so I think that getting more people to even just go down into that research, or starting to do the research, just talking more about the different incentives there are, and to purchase, but then also the cost of ownership. Like, it really is, it's a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. So
that might be a good segue. We had another audience question I wanted to get to, specifically about, did rebates and incentives have any impact on your purchasing decisions? And maybe pick on you first, Stephanie, because I know you're here in Oregon, where Forth helped create a $2,500 rebate, which I hope you took advantage of on your car. But did that influence you, whether it was to get an electric or what electric car you got?
So it didn't influence me on whether to get an electric, but it definitely made going with one that didn't have the federal rebate more feasible. So I didn't get a federal rebate for mine, but I did get the $2,500 for the state rebate. And I think also people should know that if you can qualify for low income, you can get even more money from depending on your state. And I also got a rebate from my gas company or my electric company for the charger. So I believe it was $500 towards my home charger purchase. So
shout out to conference sponsor Portland General Electric there.
Yes, GE, thank you. But it was, it definitely factored into it, because it's a big purchase. And when you're thinking about is it really going to be cost effective? I want to do good. I want to do my part to help the environment, but I can't do it if it's going to cost me, if it's going to be not economically feasible. But it's saved me a ton of money so far, and I'm 4 months in. So it definitely, I think once hopefully the additional rebates will go into effect and be able to help a lot more people, especially if there's a push for targeting low income people that probably are relying on the cars even more, driving more. So I'd like to see a free charging for the first year kind of thing, or more community charging that's free. So that would be awesome.
And I will add that that's one of, that's part of our specialty in terms of the work that we're doing to really help normalize what EV ownership and adoption looks like, and, increasing awareness to diverse communities as well as the general market in terms of how to increase market penetration, because we find that folks from all different walks of life have really a limited understanding and knowledge of EV technology and the various multimodal e-mobility solutions that are available to all.
Yeah, Dr. Robertson or Chris, either of you have a comment about rebates or incentives? If not, I'll let Shelley ask the next one. Oh, and you're on mute. It wouldn't be a conference if someone wasn't talking on mute.
I have to be careful of that. I researched rebates, and I didn't qualify in my state or the type of vehicle I acquired for a rebate, and I was disappointed. I'm in Alabama, and the Alabama Power does offer a off-peak rate for electrical consumption. So you submit certain paperwork, prove that you have charging at home, and that you actually have an EV, and then your rate is reduced. I'm in a process of that application process. So I'm not actually sure how that will translate in terms of actual dollars, but it was a consideration. As I was making up my mind to acquire the car, that Alabama did have this special rate, off-peak rate for particularly for EV owners.
And just to add to that, in the state of Georgia, most power companies do offer an off-peak rate. I think you have to pay a certain amount monthly, and then you get this really low rate. But you have to calculate how much usage you have and all that to make sure it makes sense. The other thing, my power company actually provides, I think it's like a $350 charger rebate for your home. So there are incentives everywhere. Again, people just don't know about them. And when we talk about, I was just thinking about this, when we talk about something like that, maybe, something that would help is a cheat sheet to say, hey, here are some things to look at. Maybe we can do by state, state of Georgia, this, things to look at. Alabama, look at these things. And maybe we can have that linked or posted somewhere for folks to have access to. I think that might be a good idea as we move forward with all the changes that are about to come, because clearly whatever we have now is definitely going to change in the next few weeks or whatever.
Thank you for that response, Chris. We just have a few more minutes, so we want to squeeze in a couple additional questions before we wrap up and conclude our session. But how has your purchase of your electric vehicle impacted or influenced, or maybe piqued curiosity for family members and friends? Dr. Robinson, I heard you say earlier that when you give people a ride in your electric vehicle, they want to purchase one immediately. Have you all seen similar experiences, or just talk a little bit more about how your kind of trailblazing into the EV world has had a ripple effect around those in your sphere of influence? And don't everybody jump in at once. Stephanie or Chris.
Well,
Sure.
I do have a story here. My stepdad and my mom was down sometime in July when my mom normally comes down, and this is the first time they're seeing the Tesla. And my dad, just to give a little context, my dad, he is a mechanic, and he's a tutor, so he teaches mechanical repairs and all that stuff on cars. So he's heavy into gas cars. And we got into the car, and he was driving, and he goes, "Oh," he has a German accent because he studied in Germany, and he goes, this is all right." And it was really good because we were driving alone that night, just me and him, And, you know, when he came back to the house, he had to take the car, you know, the other car back. So, you know, when he got out the car, he goes, you know, I like this, Chris. We need to talk about this some more. So I thought that was just really amazing that not a lot of words, but you knew his head was just, he was just going like, wow. So it's definitely something that's interesting. I've had probably about, remember, none of my friends, you know, prior had electric vehicles, and now I'd say about 50% of them are very interested in, because my story, it's like, what, you did that? How? Just didn't know. So it does change lives, you know.
I would just say that's the same for me. I often post screenshots just of messages or whatever on social media, and all of my friends they get on me because I'm notorious for having a like 10% battery remaining on my cell phone. And so when people realize, wait, you have an EV and you've never been stranded, or you don't have to charge it every day. And I'm like, I have to charge my cell phone more than I have to charge my car. And like, it's like, I've never been at 10% on my car, and I don't charge it every day. And so if I can do it, I'm like, they're all like, oh, if she doesn't get stranded because she doesn't get, you know, no percentage, then everyone of course believes that they can. So it's been super cool seeing what everyone is ordering and getting and interested in. But it's been pretty cool to see how many people are like, oh, if she can do it, then I can do it.
Nice. Well, my teenagers would tell you that having a low cell phone battery is a lot scarier than having a low car battery.
Oh,
So
I just want to add one last thing. My cousin is coming over for Thanksgiving, and I was just talking to her this morning, and she goes, I'm getting a great deal on my Audi, so I'm going to sell it. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, but I was looking at those Teslas, and I'm like, you're getting a Tesla? She just bought the Audi like a year ago. So, and we've been hanging out probably about the last 3 months a lot. And she's driven in the car, and she really likes it. She's driven in the Leaf. She likes that one too, but for her, she has to do a fair amount of traveling. So she needs something with a little more range, and she's looking around. So it definitely changed perspective when someone comes in an EV and see the capabilities and see the possibilities and know that it's real, you know.
fabulous. Okay, well, we're coming up on time, so I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, keep people on schedule. But thank all three of you for sharing your stories with us. I really appreciate your feedback and your time with us today. It's always great to moderate with you, Shelley. And again, a reminder, I saw it flash on the screen there, but please do take the quick poll.